you don't have to read music to be able to play.
No, I mean, it helps. I learned other instruments when I was younger, so I already read music before I attacked the bagpipes. And when I did, I was given written music. But if I'd been born 100 years earlier, I wouldn't have had written music. I would have had a teacher that would sing to me, and I would memorise everything through this singing method, and then adapt it to play the pipes. So every note would have a slightly different sound, every embellishment. What I mean by embellishment, when I play the pipes, so we talked about this constant airflow, which means the sound doesn't stop. So if I play different notes, there's no attack to any note. Like if I play guitar or a piano, I hit the key or I pluck the string, you've got an attack, it starts, it stops. If I'm moving between notes, you don't have any of that, unless you add grace notes. So, let me grab my practice chart. This is what we used to practice on. You don't get anywhere near this when you start. It's impossible to play when you start, you know. It's, like I said to you, it's 4 reeds, an oboe and 3 clarinets. It takes an incredible amount of wind power to get this to sound at all. So before you get anywhere near that, you learn how to manipulate the sound. So if I'm playing there's no attack to any note unless I start adding grace notes, and a grace note is just a very short additional note before the melody note. So a single grace note would sound like this. Then I can double them by adding a second grace note. And it gets a bit more complicated from there. There's a throw, turluth. Different combinations of grace notes give different sounds. They give a rhythmic feel to it as well, but mainly it's to give the melody notes an attack, and it just brightens up the
Yeah, just on that note, do you like with a whistle? Do you use your tongue to enunciate notes?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I play a bit of whistle, but I was never formally taught. I took bagpipe technique and somehow translated it.
But after you got off the practice chanter, I mean, you can't use that tongue.
No,
in,
exactly.
Right?
I mean, with the practice chanter, I could, in theory. But there's no point to that, because when I play the pipes,
Lose the tongue.
there is a huge gap between the reed here and my mouth here. And if I use my tongue, all I'm doing is disrupting the airflow into the bag, because the air goes into the bag, and from the bag it then moves through the reeds. So there's nothing that I can really do with my tongue or my lips that's going to affect the sound at all.
That's why it always seemed really weird to me that that's the practice instrument for this, when it's fundamentally different. You know?
Yeah, it is. But if you never learned any other wind instrument, it wouldn't necessarily be obvious to use your tongue. I remember learning brass when I was at school and learning the whole tonguing technique and double tongue and triple tonguing, but if you're not told that, it's not necessarily obvious. You're not going to go, oh well, this is how I affect a note, I use my tongue. Because at that moment you're just going to go, how am I fucking holding this? Can I blow it hard enough, you know? Because everybody I've ever tried to teach or taught, they'll start off and it'll be something like, you know, you can't figure out how much air you need in the first instance. So that takes a little bit of practice before you even start moving your fingers. And then it's like, where are the holes? How do I do this? Because the first kind of instinct is to try and cover them with your fingertips. And that is a very difficult stretch. I mean, with flute, it tends to be fingertips. But with the bagpipes, when you play, you're really using your fingers flat, so you're using the pads to cover the holes rather than your fingertips. And this gives you a much more simple movement, because essentially everything's on the same axis, rather than all your knuckles having to move in different ways. Because when you're playing very fast, like I demonstrated, some of the embellishments are like 11 notes long, and all this happens in a fraction of a second. You know, if you're trying to do that with your fingertips, I don't know how that would work. I think it would just be a mess. So yeah, the whole tonguing thing doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything at all. I'm gonna.
All you're doing is filling the bag.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you asked about my neck. It's a side effect. So because I have to generate such a high pressure and such a big volume of air, it has to, well, first come from somewhere and it has to get out of me. And then not only that, there's going to be pressure resistance because the bag's already full of air. So I'm trying to push more and more air into something that's already full, you know. It's like blowing up a balloon that can't burst. You know, you're going to be struggling and struggling. So side effect is that the pressure builds in your neck. Depending on the strength of reed you play, the thickness of the blades make it easier or harder to blow. If they're very thick, they're much harder to blow. You need a higher amount of air pressure.
Is it actually giving you more volume?